Good evening to all and a hearty welcome to all of you who have joined this webinar hosted by Sai University in association with the Hindu Education Plus. We have a very distinguished panel of speakers this evening who will guide the potential law graduates on the emerging careers in law. The topic is relevant and significant as so many students are on the threshold of choosing their careers. And I'm sure inputs from our panelists would be very useful for them and also evoke lots of questions at the end of the discussion. So I request all students stay alert to figure out the best options available to you and the way forward in your careers. Let me get started with brief introductions of our esteemed guests. Mr. K.V. Ramani. Hello, sir. Mr. Ramani is the founder and chancellor of Sai University, which is a multidisciplinary institution that seeks to break free from the conventional courses. It had to be a successful techpreneur. I got the pronunciation right, I think. It had to be a successful techpreneur and educationist like Mr. Ramani himself to drive this ambitious vision of a dynamic global institution. After starting his career in IBM as an engineering graduate, he anticipated the technology surge and established a communication technology firm in 1985, followed by a telecommunications software company in India as a joint venture with the US firm Hughes Software in 1990. One of the pioneers who led the efforts to bring India's IT sector to international prominence, Mr. Ramani also founded the NASSCOM in 1988 to assist the growth and development of the IT sector in India. Involved as a mentor to the industry, he has always been engaged with various initiatives that include designing of the Tidal Park in Chennai, serving on the board of director of ELCOT. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has honored him with the award for creating the brand of New India as NASSCOM co-founder. Welcome, Mr. Ramani, once again. The only lady member on the panel, Justice Prabha Sridevan, a retired judge of the Madras High Court. Hello, ma'am. She's a name well known as much for the cases she dealt with, including the celebrated Novartis Glivec case in which she ruled against the global healthcare company, as she is for her writings and oratorical prowess. After retiring in 2010, Justice Prabha was appointed as the chairperson of the Intellectual Property Appellate Board for the next 3 years, during when she was instrumental in improving the functioning of the board and also delivered a number of important IP decisions. This included the one relating to India's very first compulsory licensing application. A prolific writer, Justice Prabha has written and translated several books. She is a recipient of the Justice Shivraj V. Patil Award for Service to Humanity in 2015. She has also been featured multiple times in the list of 50 most important in the IP world, published annually by the publication Managing Intellectual Property. Hello, ma'am, and welcome. A senior advocate of the Madras High Court, Mr. Sriram Panchu, has been referred to as one of the foremost and internationally recognized mediators in the country by the Supreme Court of India. He played a critical role in bringing mediation into India's dispute resolution system. An expert in constitutional and commercial law, Mr. Panchu has appeared pro bono in several significant public interest cases. In 2018, he was conferred upon the Lawyers of India Day Award of Honor and Distinction by the Bar Association of India. He's also credited with setting up India's first court-annexed mediation center in the Madras High Court. A member of the National Legal Services Authority of India, he's the president of the National Association of Mediators in India, director of the International Mediation Institute. Mr. Panchu has also authored 3 books titled Settle for More, Mediation Practice and Law, and the Commercial Mediation Monograph. An alumnus of the Government Law College, Bombay, he's presently a member of Executive Board of Sai University. Welcome, sir. The co-founder of AZB and Partners, Mr. Behram N. Vakil, is amongst India's foremost restructuring, bankruptcy, infrastructure, and project finance attorneys, who has advised several distressed funds, insolvency professionals, domestic and international banks. An LLM from Columbia University, Mr. Behram has served on various high-level government committees on financial reform, foreign direct investment, and securities market reform. He was appointed as a key member of the Dr. T.K. Vishwanathan Committee on Bankruptcy Law Reforms, constituted by the Union Ministry of Finance, and is also a member of the Insolvency Law Amendment Committee, constituted by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Mr. Behram is the first Indian lawyer to be invited to serve as a member of the International Insolvency Institute and is duly qualified to practice law in India and New York. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Behram.
Thank you.
Dr. Anand Padmanabhan. He is the Dean and Associate Professor of Sai School of Law and a visiting fellow at the Center for Policy Research. For someone who has been critically examining the policy implications of a wide range of technologies and solutions, including digital identities, blockchain, civilian drones, gene editing, and electric mobility, with special focus on ease of innovating in India, it is a delight to read his opinion pieces in various media. A graduate from the National Law School of India, University, Bangalore, and LLM from the University of Pennsylvania Law School, Philadelphia, Mr. Padmanabhan previously worked with the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, New Delhi, starting their technology policy research initiatives in India. He has practiced law in the Madras High Court and taught at several institutions. He has authored and co-authored several chapters in Oxford University publications. His chapter on big data in a new volume on regulation in India called Design Capacity Performance is part of a continuing initiative to examine the public law and regulatory dimensions of new technologies. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much.
So it's quite an overwhelming presence of stalwarts in today's discussion. So without wasting much time, may I request you, Mr. Ramani, for the benefit of our students who have joined, to tell them about the Sai University Law School and what it offers as an unconventional hybrid university, and also what new plans you have in the pipeline. So you're muted. I think you have to unmute yourself.
I said, thank you so much. And a good evening to all the panelists and all our viewers. First of all, I need to tell you about Sai University. The reason for Sai University's commencement started from a fundamental question. To say in the 75th year of independence, why is India not having at least one of the top 100 universities in the world, as assessed by the Times International Ranking or the QS International Ranking? Our top institutions like IITs come between 125 and 150. Our private universities, leading private universities, come beyond 200, and many universities come beyond 400 in the global ranking. So the idea is to say, why don't we bring in global education to India in higher education? And as you can see in the recent past that, the quota of systems of students going abroad is increasing from postgraduate to even currently undergraduate students. So what seems to be lacking today is that, we take pride in a news item which appeared in the Hindu recently to say the US has granted 55,000 student visas this year, as if it's a great achievement. Actually, we should be quite disappointed with this because that means that an exodus of 55,000 of our students at undergraduate level, 18, to foreign countries because of education they cannot get here. So the vision of Sai University is born with this objective to say we will build a globally eminent university in India, number one. And what does it take to build a globally eminent university in India? We analyzed and studied several international universities, found there are 5 pillars to a great university. First and foremost, the board of governance. The governance has to be by not a member of family and friends, but the governance is by people who are eminent and multiple skills and diverse interests, their professions. So we have, I'm glad to say, board members, of 18 board members, who are visionaries and leaders in their own field, and 5 Padma Vibhushans and 1 Padma Shri. The second pillar we found was the faculty. In order to get the top faculty to address the students in India for a global university, we set a benchmark that 50% of our faculty will be international faculty, teaching online and during as visiting faculty during the time they get their breaks in their universities. And the other 50% of the faculty in India will also have international accreditation so that the quality of teaching would be on par with the best universities in the world. The third pillar was the curriculum. In India, the curriculum has been in silos. If you take any discipline, the existing universities and colleges offer you a package. You take one major, you have 2 minors free. It's almost like retail shopping. You take physics, you get chemistry and mathematics free. You take economics, you get psychology and statistics free. But that is not a concept the student wants to do. Today's education requires students to be flexible in diversified fields of interest. So we designed a curriculum which is multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary in approach. Just to dwell on it, to say that right now we started 3 schools in Sai University. The School of Law is what we're talking about. You also have a School of Arts and Sciences, and we have a School of Computing and Data Sciences. And these 3 schools will have interests of students across the schools. A student studying in law school can take a minor in arts and science school and a minor in computing school and vice versa. The idea is to say that the knowledge the student wants to acquire will be based on their interests in choosing their own majors, minors, and electives, not because it's a packaged unit. The curriculum flexibility is modeled after the international universities. All Ivy League universities have a similar approach in curriculum design. The fourth pillar is the infrastructure. Infrastructure, not in terms of just buildings, but labs, equipment, libraries, incubation centers, research, and all of the quality of life kind of amenities. And therefore, we are putting up a university in a 105 acres campus in YMR just outside Chennai, where we'll be building 25 lakh square feet of all the facilities required to create a modern campus comparable to the best campus in the world in the next 7 years. And last but not the least, in fact, it's the most important. We'll have the top-notch students as the 5th pillar. And this 5th pillar is as much important as the faculty pillar to make the university a grand success. The faculty and the students together make the academic curriculum, the academic interactions of global standards. So this is the basic foundation of the Sai University's concept and vision. And we have started the Sai University with a fellowship program called Daksha Fellowship last year for practicing lawyers to learn advanced skills in technology law, alternative dispute resolution, policy and research, and 3 fields. It's a postgraduate fellowship program. And current year programs that we are offering 2 programs in law school. One is we're continuing the Daksha Fellowship as we did last year. And the second program, we started a 1-year LLM program, which is going to be focused on regulatory laws. As you know, in India today, every sector is governed by a regulator. In financial services, we have SEBI. In telecom, we have TRAI. In insurance, we have IRDA, Higher Education Commission. I mean, the list is kind of endless. So we want to see that we have lawyers specializing in regulatory laws emerged in this new field of law in the country. Therefore, they are offering a 1-year LLM program to specialize in regulatory studies. So these students will also have the advantage of being able to interact with the other schools, liberal arts and science schools, the computing and data science schools, to say that they can select their own subjects of interest. While a person subject, major subject is the law, you could take a minor in, let's say, tech skills and computer skills. You could take a minor in possibly in economics or finance. So that the lawyers have multidisciplinary in approach. The university itself is interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary in approach. So today's program, therefore, is tailored to show the emerging new fields of law. There are several fields of law which are present today, which were possibly not available 10 years ago in India. And how are we addressing that in the Sai University? And how the students are going to be benefited by these emerging fields and selecting their careers in law. And that is the purpose of this webinar. And once again, I give you a thank you for your opportunity to speak. And I'm very glad to answer any question that any panelists or viewers have later in the program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Nice to get that valuable information. I'm sure it will benefit the students and the ones who are privileged or lucky enough to join your institution. They will also surely do better in future. So let me start with Prabha ma'am. Like whenever we send our children to universities or for higher studies or even for undergraduate levels, we do either an aptitude test or we take them to professionals and give them some guidance. And it is always that influential role they play. So I think today's platform is one such great opportunity for the students to listen to all you panelists. So what I want to hear from you is, like, you have been part of a very historically male-dominated profession. So how challenging was it for you to navigate in those years? And do you think that judiciary is now able to attract talent and maintain a gender balance in the profession?
It was just not, let me first greet all the law education aspirants and their parents. Good luck to you. I'm very happy that many students are going to pursue law because I think it's a great field of study. Having said that, it still is a male-dominated profession. It hasn't changed. The difficulties are of various kinds. Maybe I did not face certain kinds of difficulties because my husband was a lawyer and I joined his office. But it was not easy then in the 1980s for women to join an office and pursue their passion for legal profession. And there were other difficulties. So it is all the way a struggle and a battle.
Is it relatively easier now?
Very relatively easier, because if you look at the Supreme Court, you can see how many women judges are there. And right now, the addition of 3 judges made such headlines. And you remember what Ruth Bader Ginsburg said, I would like to see all the 9 as women. I'm not going that far, but I think there has to be more, not just women. It has to be a diverse bench. Otherwise, the ordinary person looking at the judiciary will not think, this is my court.
So
if it is an exclusive club, it is always them. It's not my court. And I think we should move towards that. Something that the Chief Justice of India recently has said about Indianizing the system is perhaps very, very useful if we can follow it up well.
yeah.
What was the other question that you asked?
No, I was just asking whether judiciary is now able to attract talent. Because only I think
in a way, yes. I would not particularly mention judiciary. I will say the legal field.
sorry.
Okay, when I joined law, generally it was those students who could not get in anywhere else. And it was the last resort. And if I should mention one single person, I mean, I'm sure there are others, but if I should mention one single person, it's Dr. Madhav Menon, who made legal education the cool thing to do. Thereafter, there were many youngsters who thought it was worthwhile and it could be the first priority and not after they got chucked out of engineering and medical. So it has become a better field. And if you have better people and more educated and aware people, then automatically some of them will float to the judiciary, right?
And has the gender equation been balanced, or is it or still in favor of?
No, I'm not even looking at the higher courts. We also have to look at the first courts where the ordinary litigant goes. I'm talking about the magistrates. The infrastructure is very pathetic. I won't apologize, but I will say this. I became a judge in 2000. Okay, I was invited to a function at Trichy. It was the first District Women Lawyers Association which had invited me. And the Trichy District Court is one of the oldest district courts in Tamil Nadu, at least. And they had only recently got a woman's restroom. So
I've heard this story.
there I will rest my case about how women are being drawn to the
Yeah, I think we'll come back to that, on how to deal with it. Mr. Panchu, I think I'll ask you the next question about, the nature of public law practice has obviously changed with time, as it is the case in many other professions as well. But also there is this enormous pendency of cases in courts. So do you think that that is another factor which deters the youngsters from exploring a career in litigation?
No, I think in fact it's the contrary. See, I don't think pendency of cases in court should worry a youngster joining the profession, because that basically means there is, enough and more work to be done. It might cause concern to people in the governance of the judiciary, but certainly not to somebody who's going to get in and seeks work, at the profession, at the bar. See, we are coming up with ways. Every Chief Justice, every leader of the court is concerned about the arrears and dependency of cases. We try and get some cases off to arbitration. We've amended the arbitration law to make it a little smoother. And of late, over the last few years, you will find judges speaking very strongly in favor of mediation. The essential difference between mediation and arbitration is that while arbitration is adversarial, there is a winner, there is a loser, and as long as the loser can, he will continue to go and appeal and fight it out. Whereas mediation is consensual. A mediator brings both parties to an agreement, which they can accept, and that ends the litigation, that ends the dispute. So it's a totally different way of approaching dispute. It has caught on in India over the last 15 years. India has made remarkable progress in mediation, basically through the court annexed mediation systems, where the court sets up centers, trains mediators, and judges refer cases. So we've grown a lot, I think, more than any other part of the world. And I think the time is now coming for professional mediation, private professional mediation. That is, people going to a mediator without having to access the court first. And there are grounds to be prepared for that. I mean, there's a certain amount of work that needs to go into preparing that. But that's being done. We have a new legislation on the anvil, which is going to be a comprehensive, covering all aspects of mediation. That, I think, will also include the possibility of mediation before litigation. In other words, a threshold test, where the court will ask whether this case has been mediated, has a mediation attempt been made, and when satisfied that it has been tried but hasn't succeeded, then I think the court can be accessed. That is a hugely important step. It's a hugely important step because the court is then recognizing that a mediated solution should first be attempted before you approach the traditional, adversarial litigation courts.
Yeah, the whole idea was to kind of rule out frustration for long pending, long drawn out.
Yes.
That's why I
That's
asked.
a special kind of frustration, the frustration that a litigant has.
Yes.
It is marked by fatigue on the one hand and a complete helplessness on the other, and bewilderment on the third. So, I would not like, even the most famous of judges have said, I don't wish ever to be a litigant in a court. There's a special kind of torture there.
So also at the same time, is the creation of these new regulatory bodies, are those impacting career choices, Mr. Vakil?
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you to all the students for participating. I think, yes, I mean, certainly the law in general has become more specialized. Then, from the time we practice, it's hardly recognizable. We did everything we can. We were in court almost every day. We did some real estate. You did some banking finance. I've done more than 100 wills in my time. So it was a very general practice. The firms were much smaller. Now everything is more towards specialization. But maybe I'm old-fashioned. I still believe that having a rounded experience in your early years is quite crucial. I don't understand how you can really be a good corporate or banking lawyer without having ever gone to court, because the impact of those clauses and the language that you're drafting, you only really see once you're in court or in arbitration. So yes, as has already been said, there are regulatory bodies now in each sector. I guess one of the latest is the one that I've been very involved in, IBBI, which was after the bankruptcy code came into force. Brand new regulator, brand new set of professionals in quite a record time, if I may say, compared to any country in the world. Often we are said to be slow, but in this case, we were even faster than Singapore. So with that, there is certainly a crucial requirement. There is also this kind of domain specialization. You know, in a city like London or New York, you'd be a telecom lawyer or a power lawyer. So that kind of, you know, if you are dealing with telecom, there are a lot of technical skills as well. The more you know, that's one of the fascinating things about law. So yes, between the financial regulator, you know, RBI, of course, has been there for a long time. SEBI also now quite a long time. So that is very intricate. And with fintech coming up, it's getting even more difficult to keep up. And then you have IRDA, the pension, and as I said, most recently IBBI. So yeah, I think your point is very valid.
So I would, in that case, I would like to ask all three of you, starting with maybe Justice Prabha, like, then what are the major reforms you would like to suggest in legal education, which could perhaps address the skill gaps? You know, like we are all now talking about specialization or maybe narrowing down in this particular sector. So what are the major reforms you would suggest? Maybe Justice Prabha could first answer and then we'll go to
I think the three of us are of a certain age. I don't think I want the specialization to start at the study at the beginning, because the students are too young to know what they want to do. And as Mr. Vakil said, without knowing the basic civil law and civil procedure or criminal procedure, it's not going to be easy to deal with the specialized questions, because all of them are based on these grundnorm. So I am not in favor of specialization at the early stage, and therefore, but a more imaginative syllabus and something which will teach the student about what's happening at the base level. Especially, I'm talking only of India. I really believe that this justice delivery system is a kind of a mediating force, not the mediation, the small mediation. I'm talking of a capital mediation between the ones with power and the powerless. And therefore, I would like a more imaginative syllabus where the students know what is happening and not closeted in ivory towers.
Yeah, I think that's what Mr. Ramani's institution is trying to achieve. And it's not, I think it's not at the beginning, the beginner's level, but at the higher level studies where they're talking about this specialization. Mr. Panchu, what are your views?
I think these students should see dispute resolution as a complex interweave of methods. See, I've spoken about mediation and about arbitration, but the fact that one has, one advocates mediation doesn't mean that you're trashing the conventional legal system. It doesn't mean you're trashing litigation or that you're putting arbitration down. Essentially, the point is different kinds of cases in their context and circumstances require different kinds of treatment. Some need a court. Some are better off with an arbitrator, and some do well with a mediator. I'm a little concerned because sometimes in youngsters, who like the concept of mediation, and that's natural, that there's, if you're an idealist, you would like that concept of mediation. I'm a little concerned when they say, well, I'm not going to go into a court. I'll have nothing to do with the courts. I'm only going to be a mediator. And I think, there is a problem there because the courts and the legal system are where you have the basics of law. You must know the basics of law, and you must know how the basics of law actually operate. It's only when you do that can you become, in your own term, a good arbitrator or mediator. So, as I said, there is a cross weave between these three, and students should, I think, we should be wary about encouraging students to go particularly and exclusively in favor of one. You have to, I think, be proficient, be knowledgeable in the different ways in which dispute resolution can be structured for you to make a success in any one field.
Yeah. Mr. Vakil?
Yeah, I completely agree with Justice Prabha. I think that during, especially now that the students have to decide about law even earlier than it used to be in our time. I mean, we had to do an undergrad and then do the 3-year law. Now you have, most of them are the 5-year courses. Most of the students opt for that. So I would say that initially it should be broad based. And again, if you can interweave the crucial issues of our time, not only in India, but sadly across the world, things like growing inequality. You read that in the newspapers everywhere. Growing intolerance or divisiveness. And these are, fundamental principles. And we seem to be going down the wrong path as humanity. As I keep saying, this is across the world. So if these issues, broader issues, with all the basic concepts which hold you in such good stead through your career, if those are embedded well, then I like the UK system where they have a lot of the specialist training in the 2 years, what they call the trainee contract. So each firm spends a huge amount of time and effort in training their lawyers. So there you can get into the specializations. There also in the 2 years, it is compulsory to do 4 rotations. So once again, you must spend 6 months in corporate, in banking, in real estate, in litigation. So you force that broadness, but there's a lot of on-hands training there. But in college, I think keep it broad and also keep it relevant by the crucial issues of our time. As I said, inequality, divisiveness, and of course, today it's right on top of us. One of the few silver linings of COVID, I guess, is everyone has realized that we are running out of time on the climate. So there are so many issues there, including legal issues. These are the things that the students should spend their time on.
40 minutes into the discussion and already students are asking how to crack CLAT and how many months required to crack CLAT. Would any one of you like to take that?
I don't think anybody on this panel has any experience in that whatsoever.
Okay. Since you mentioned the COVID, Mr. Vakil, so with this global pandemic on now, do you envisage more cross-border work and transactions in the immediate future?
Yes, I think, a lot of these effects, I hope and pray, are temporary. So, when people say that they won't come back to work and we are stuck with this hybrid and at home, I don't think so. Human nature is that we will bounce back quite strong as soon as we can. So, again, in terms of the cross border and globalization, I think it's here to stay. What they call the China plus one. So now people will not put all the eggs in that basket. And India has already benefited hugely because in a lot of cases they choose India as the second one so that it's a safer option in so many areas, and that's why our exports are doing so well. Having said that, definitely people will also feel that now have some basic production at home. I mean, that's the safest thing. Let's say the vaccines. One of our biggest advantages, we are the largest vaccine manufacturer in the world. Today, sadly, Africa, there's no chance for them, or South America, most of those countries, how do you get the vaccines? So a lot of it, the developed world will manufacture at home, but globalization will also continue. I have no doubt about that.
Mr. Panchu, you were raising your hand. Maybe you wanted to add something.
Because you use the word cross-border,
Okay.
so I just wanted to mention that there is the Singapore Convention of 2019, under which mediation settlements can be enforced in any part of the world, in any country which is a signatory to the convention. And this one step, has greatly boosted the attractiveness of mediation. Because as you know, it's not easy to enforce a legal verdict or an arbitral award. It keeps getting challenged. But the mediation settlements are there are very few grounds of challenge. So this is greatly added to that. I think it's the one thing which has with which now it's a completely attractive package in terms of cost, in terms of time, in terms of solutions and relationships, and now enforceability.
So does any of you see the law practice going fully online in the future? And then we need to equip our students accordingly?
Well, I see increasingly that judges are comfortable with online. But I very much doubt whether the courts will go majorly online. We are too rooted, to the way we function. And I think we still love the standing up in court and making the argument. And I think the atmosphere in the court and the reaction of other lawyers to the argument also tells a bit on the judge. So we may, I think, earmark some cases off for online resolution, but I see us getting back to regular courts. But on the side of where proceedings are conducted more in private, like arbitration and mediation, there I think online is going to have, it's already had a huge impact, and I think it will continue to, because that is simply so easy to schedule, dealing with people from different cities and different countries, and the need to keep meeting. Online, I think, will capture a big market there.
Dr. Prabha, I saw you smile, so I thought maybe you wanted to add something.
Yeah, the nature of certain kinds of litigation will definitely make online rather unavoidable. For instance, we were talking about the basic civil law and criminal law, but that kind of territorial fixedness has gone, especially like intellectual property or artificial intelligence or cybercrime. There is no locus like that. So it is going to just diffuse everywhere, in which case I think lawyers will have to figure out how they will do it online, and the justice delivering authority will also have to do it. It may be a hybrid variety, but definitely we cannot do away with online. In fact, it will be a major actor. This is my opinion.
Mr. Vakil, which way are you going?
No, I think I agree with what has been said so far. In life, balance is everything. So I think it'll be hybrid. So there will be, I hope, some efficiencies of online which will stay with us for a long time. And but everything cannot be online. So to your question, will it be fully online? I highly doubt it.
So what is the status of these law firm hirings now? Like, have they kind of dwindled, or you think there are enough opportunities for young lawyers to tap into it?
No, certainly there are very exciting opportunities. There may have been a lull because all of us, for example, in our firm, unfortunately, since March, we have not reopened. We were thinking of in April, and then we all know what happened in April and May. Fingers crossed, God willing, we'll open on 4th of October. But once we all come back to office, I mean, this has been especially hard on the young lawyers. If you're a new lawyer, there's that much you can get from Zoom. And that's why I say you need a balance. The on-hands training for a youngster is absolutely crucial. So it's certainly we will bounce back. I think our country has a terrific future, and no question, law also has a fantastic future. And as Justice Prabha said, really, after the start of the first NLS Bangalore and the terrific job done. It's all changed because in our time, absolutely, I agree. It used to be that you don't get into med or engineering, etc. Then chalo law, with 65% or whatever you get there. And then I remember Dr. Menon used to say with great pride that there were X number of students who got into IIT but chose to do law. It was that popular, and today I have to say it's a very exciting profession, and of course very well paying as well.
Being a journalist, and since I've read Dr. Padmanabhan's articles, I would like to ask, I think I should bring you in. I would like to ask you about, whether there is any kind of dearth in good writing on legal aspects. Do you think like that? Do you feel like that?
Yeah, I do feel that. I mean, I think even when I read law at NLS, there was a lot of emphasis on moot courts. And of course, we write a lot of these projects, but I know how well those projects are written. Thankfully, we didn't have Turnitin very popular those days. And now I use that against our students and kind of find out. But basically, I felt that asking students to write a lot of projects is not the way you actually learn writing. I mean, writing is actually an activity that you learn better by doing less of it, but getting a lot more feedback, right? So I think this is a structural problem. It's not a legal education curriculum issue, really. I just feel that the way law schools are structured, there is very little emphasis on having an in-house writing instructor. I mean, I may be the finest lawyer out there, but that doesn't mean I know to actually write, simple English well. I mean, a lot of times, you are trained in writing in a manner where, there is a lot of path dependency in terms of using certain kinds of phrases and basically what we call legal English, really. But students need a lot of training to kind of grapple with the language in a more simple manner. I mean, to give you my own example, I did my LLM when I was 30, went to UPenn, and I had already published a book. And I landed up there, and I had Professor Kena, who was teaching me legal writing, and I realized that my entire approach to writing was wrong. Like, I mean, I was basically, very legally oriented in all my writing, but it was not simple English, essentially. Right? A lot of use of passive voice. So I think, there are fundamental rules of writing which need to be first taught, because if you love writing, and I've seen that with some of my peers who are doing very well in academia and in top institutions, and when I speak to each of them, what I really see is that there is a love for writing that came first, and then you kind of get into legal writing. So unless we can really impress upon students, the beauty of literature and what writing is really meant to do, and what it serves as a tool, right? Then you kind of get them into legal writing. It's always going to be more like, this is a kind of a task which I have to kind of get done with. And I'm sure Mr. Panchu will have some thoughts on this. I mean, in fact, I still remember, sir, when you spoke to our Daksha fellows, that was probably the most valuable insight that anybody could offer to them, right? Read widely and read literature. So I think, yeah, that's where I would begin.
I'd like to add something here. It's not just the students writing. Yes, I think we need a lot of professors to write and professors to critique judgments. I am afraid critiquing is considered as criticism, and the eggshells are very soon crushed. But that is wrong. When I was in the IPAB, there was a case about a software, and I read 2 essays written by 2 scholars in US, which gave me so much insight into how I should look at the problem. I think we need a lot of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, my co-panelists, there is a huge dearth.
I completely agree with Prabha on this one. Um, the real good source of critiquing what judges do, critiquing judgments, pointing out the flaws, is meant to be done by legal academics. And one has heard an English judge say this. He was a Court of Appeal judge, and he said, "I don't care what the House of Lords thinks of my judgment, but I'm petrified that the academics will take this apart." And that is what academics need to do. And there are so few of them in India, you can count them, on the fingers of one hand. And coming to students, I think we should teach our students one thing, that please write in order to be understood. Not to keep throwing the big words and to kind of, showing that your grasp of a language is so wide, but write in order to be easily understood. I think that is the trick to good writing. And yes, as much of it as you can get students to do, I would say the better. So basically, I think at the university, one should have far more writing from professors, from students.
It's a very interesting point, because a lot of judgments also that are pronounced, some of them are so creative and poetic and, taking a leaf from literature. So it makes it much more interesting. And as you said, it has to be written to be understood, because many of us, we just go through the drafts and we hardly are not able to fathom or configure what is being told. It's like a lot of archaic language also seeps in. So I think that was a very crucial point of making it the writing practice. Okay, Prabha, one more thing was coming to my mind while I was listening to all of you speak is, like you have seen maybe the good and the bad and all. So to the young aspirants, and especially the women, what are those specific career options that you would recommend today, or the opportunities?
Prabha, you're muted.
When I became a lawyer, you either went to court and was a litigationist, or you did what is called chamber practice conveyancing. But now it's not like that. Now there are so many areas in which the advocacy and legal knowledge is useful. So see, for instance, let's say copyright law, patent. I saw in IPAB a greater percentage of women practitioners than I had seen in the High Court. So the field, and as Mr. Vakil said, climate, environmental law. So it's not just this and that. I think there is a variety, a wide scope, and of course, gender studies and gender advocacy. That is something that I'm not saying only women should do it. In fact, au contrary, I think there should be an input from men so that men understand what is needed. But there are so many areas where women can practice, and with relatively greater ease than was there when I had started my practice.
Dr. Vakil, I think, wants to raise a point. Yes.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that, to answer your question, every option that's there to a young male lawyer is there for a lady lawyer as well. I mean, in today's world, and I want to say how proud I am that in our firm, not only a majority of the lawyers are women, but more importantly, even in the partnership, I would say we are virtually equal. So no doubt, having a managing partner like Zia makes a difference. I think it inspires a lot of youngsters. but it's absolutely open for a young lady in any of the fields. I think today it's very different, as I was saying. So whether you want to do litigation, you want to do corporate, you want to do finance, environment, as Justice Prabha said, I mean, that's a wide open field. And again, not too many experts. There are going to have to be a lot of lawyers that are going to have to gain some expertise in that area. And then we've not talked about competition so far, but again, if you like economics and law, then competition may be the one for you. But really, everything is wide open.
So this you're mentioning, referring to the firm abroad, your firm abroad. What about the scenario?
No. My firm is in India.
Okay.
EZB is entirely in India. Our only offices are Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, and Pune.
Okay. So that's good, as ma'am was clapping. Right. So in the beginning also, I think, Mr. Vakil, you mentioned about inclusivity in the profession. So I would like your take on that.
Sorry, in terms of?
Inclusivity in the profession.
Yeah, I think there we have a lot of road to travel. You know, and there again, I don't know, as a educational institution, it all begins there, because sadly, what life has taught me is that if you give everyone the same opportunity, they will do really well. But we all know that that is not the case. So at least from an educational point of view, if we are able to give more of our youngsters the same opportunity that we had, so that then they can strive to, you know, become the best counsel or join the best firms. So I think it's still a work in progress, and we have a lot of progress to make, to be honest.
How can we work on these, Prabha ma'am? What would be your suggestion?
One example that comes to my mind is, I don't know if you have heard of increasing diversity, increasing awareness, IDIA, started by Professor Shamnath Bashir. He discovers the students in absolutely difficult backgrounds who want to do law. And then he gets national law schools and such institutes to give them a fee waiver or a reduction. And just offhand, I can tell you one name, one Karthika Annamalai, whose mother broke stones in the border between Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, now is a high-flying lawyer. So you just have to give the education, the opportunity, the chance to compete with others, which I think, I mean, the level playing field is coming only with education. And those of us who are fortunate should facilitate that. I mean, whether it's firms or college or whatever, that I think will automatically bring diversity. In fact, one other scholar of IDEA was a person who could not see visually. He was affected, and he has become a IDEA scholar. So it's great work. There's nothing that is beyond the reach of anyone. We know the example of Justice Zach Yaqub, who lost his vision when he was 18 months. He's one of the greatest judges of South Africa. So I think we should just facilitate it and clear the hurdles. And I hope Mr. K.V. Ramani will do it.
And I think also highlighting such success stories, you know, those are also very inspirational. Do you have any? Yes, Mr. Raman.
You're muted, Rami.
Thank you, Justice Prabha, for allowing me to answer this point. I just want to say that Sai University is the first principal I did not mention in my opening remark, is an institution founded on the concept of education as a service. It is not founded on the concept of education as a service. Our principal change from other institutions is that it is not only a non-profit, but it is a non-profit. There is no one else as the owner. The surpluses from the universities go to reinvest in the faculty, in the institution, the infrastructure, and the students of the university. And therefore, the university is, number one, a real education for service activity. And number two, that we do welcome students from all sections of society who have good record. And we offer scholarship from 25 to 100%. I'm happy to tell you, we just now announced as 2 students a scholarship in our undergraduate program. One is the daughter of an auto rickshaw driver. Other one is the son of a farm worker. Both of them have been granted 100% scholarship in Sai University. So for deserving good candidates, deserving good students, fees will not be a limitation in Sai University. We welcome them with open arms. We want good students to come. We want them to get educated. I do certainly agree with you that education is the greatest leveler. And the main focus of Sai University is to provide that as a global university, as education as a leveler, as education as a service, and make sure that nobody is denied good education on the grounds of economic or social criteria. Thank you.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Thank you. Mr. Panchu, do you think it should be made mandatory for law graduates to do some kind of public service in NGOs in order to instill some kind of sensitization?
I think it would be a wonderful idea to work with NGOs, to work with underprivileged groups. I think it would add to their sensitivity, it would let them know what kind of challenges this country faces, that specific groups face. Because the law is many things, the law is many forums, is actually a collection of disciplines in a way. But the law is a helping profession. It can and must be a helping profession. And therefore, I think that idea is something that all students, should get. And there's awareness of the disparities in this country, and reaching across to help. I think it'd be a wonderful experience. And if every student gets it, you can expect something from that student, as he or she progress in their careers. I think it is a window we should open out for students.
Yeah, I like that law can and must be a helpful profession. This thing has to penetrate. The people really have to, there's this fear, or there is this frustration, there's this fatigue. So we have to kind of break that. So Prabha ma'am, you would like to say something on this?
I think Mr. Vakil wants to say something. After that, I will.
Okay.
No,
sure.
please,
Sorry,
please, I'll wait for you. I want to say something, but after you.
Yeah, what Mr. Sriram says, that it is a helping profession is absolutely correct. And unless the lawyers have experienced the disadvantages, then the territory is not going to change. If the lawyers are all privileged backgrounds, coming from privileged, so it has to break that impasse so that the students, the lawyers come from different backgrounds and the exposure to NGO. There is one more thing that I would like to add is every lawyer should do at least 52 days of pro bono work. And if they are a senior lawyer, it is double. I think the American Bar Association has something like that, which is mandatory. I think we should do, if a law firm, if the senior in the law firm does it, the interns, the clerks, and the new lawyers will automatically get into that culture of reaching out and helping the ones who need the help. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Vakil.
Yeah, so I, very, very much in the same vein, I'm quite ashamed to say that back in 1984, I worked for 4 years in the US. And exactly as Justice Prabha said, pro bono hours were compulsory all the way back then. And all the firms, all the pro bono mandatory work I've done has only been in those 4 years. In all these decades in India, I have not seen a single firm. I've spoken, of course, many times at our firm also about this, but the feeling is always it should be voluntary, which personally I don't agree with, because also, as Justice Prabha said, as you grow senior, someone like me, I'm very privileged. A huge part of my work is pro bono. And I'm very grateful to the firm for that. But I am in a position where I can make that decision. For a first year, second year, for a junior, there would be too much pressure. So the American system, I think, is much, much better, where you mandate X number of hours and you inculcate that ethos in every young lawyer. We should be doing that. We should have done it long, long ago. And today, if anything, I don't know, Sriram will certainly have a view on it, but I think even in the litigators that were there, our good friends like Navroz Sirvai, etc., I think that also, if anything, it has come down instead of increasing. So to get a good counsel doing pro bono, but I'm kind of out of touch with litigation now for quite some time, so I better not speak. I'll leave it to Sriram to tell us how it is amongst counsel.
Amongst counsel, you have stalwarts who take up public interest matters. I mean, you have people like Navroz Sirvai, whom Behram was mentioning. You have Prashant, and in every high court you will have people who take up public interest matters. And the amazing thing about them is the amount of time that they are prepared to give for these matters. That they will not turn away a cause if it is worthwhile, the amount of time they give for these matters. And I think that's another area where Sai University could contribute. And I'm looking at it in a slightly broader sense, not just in terms, Mr. Ramani, of your students going and interning with them for that 1 or 2 months, but actually you're setting up a resource in Sai University for public interest law, which will be a resource for research, to turn out briefs, to keep track of judgments, so that across the expanse of this country, if there's a lawyer who's doing a public interest case, would like research on a particular point, would like some help on a brief, your university with its students, if you have a center for that purpose, could contribute a lot. This is just a thought for you to think over.
That's it. So again, to all the 3 panelists, like with your areas of specialization in intellectual property law, and tribunals or alternate dispute resolution mechanisms or those trained in regulation. So what would be those very, very specific suggestions that you would give as the best career prospects for those students who want to specifically choose these three areas? You could start with Mr. Vakil.
Yeah, so first thing I'll say is that given the amount of hours and hard work young lawyers have to put in, I would say go with your heart, go with your passion. So don't. Sometimes I feel with youngsters, there's the flavor of the month. Everyone says, "Oh, M&A sounds very exciting," or "private equity sounds very exciting." Don't go with that. Go with something. All areas of law are exciting as soon as you dive into it. So go with what suits you. Each of us are, different individuals with our own makeup. So, and then, obviously you'll have to put in the hours and the eye for detail, which every lawyer requires. In the area that I'm spending a lot of time now, as you kindly mentioned, I was involved with the bankruptcy code. So restructuring, if that is something that appeals to some of the audience here, sadly, the prospects are very bright because, as many of you may know, there are a lot of what we call non-performing loans and bad loans. And in fact, it is such a dire situation that the government has even set up a bad bank very recently for these non-performing loans. So, and then COVID only accentuated. We were already in quite a poor way, and then COVID has accentuated that situation. So I would say over the next few years, there will be a lot of restructuring work, and all the cases like Divan and so many others, Jet, and all the retail and hospitality. There are certain sectors that have just been hit very hard. So if that is your cup of tea, then the opportunity is very bright.
Lovely. Prabha ma'am?
See, I agree with Mr. Vakil when he said don't go with the flavor of the month, but realistically speaking, many youngsters may not have the right to choose. They may be pushed into it in some ways, and there, see, my personal experience, I'll tell you, I had not done any intellectual property case apart from the celebrated Novartis when I was appointed the chairman of the IPAB. But and I'm not a science graduate. I had done English literature, and patents is all about molecular structure, this and that. But I loved it. See, that is something the youngsters can learn. If you don't get what you want, you must desire what you got and then give it your all. And it has come to that situation. I mean, it's almost like this intellectual property is like that, the Vetal on Vikram's shoulder. I'm not able to get it off me. I love the subject so much, so I'm not science at all. I'm just an English literature student. So I think youngsters should have that drive and that passion. Sometimes you may not get what you want, but you will always find that small spark in what you get and just blow on it and make it bigger. Don't lose heart.
Mr. Panchu?
I think the law is uniquely a field which you can love. And I think the best thing for a lawyer is to look back and say, I've had a glorious 40, 50, 60 years love affair with the law. Because this is a field which you can love, which will demand as much as you can give, and will give you in turn, plenty of rewards. Intellectual nourishment, constant engagement, relevance, of course, the money. So my first piece of advice would be to say, if you can love this profession, or whichever part of it you choose, then you're made. All you have to do is to work hard. I have never seen a single lawyer who works hard and not succeeding. Okay, but you must love what you do. And my second piece of advice would be to say, don't worry about changing. If you go down one path and you say, well, you know, this is my career track, and you find down the line that that's not exactly suiting you, don't worry about changing, however late it may be. But make sure just of one thing, that you like what you're doing. That is my recipe for success. That's my prescription.
I think that's what Prabha ma'am was saying when we were introducing ourselves about starting late and then how passion takes over. So that kind of compliments. I don't remember whether I said in the beginning that Mr. Vakil would be leaving early, little early, because there are some questions which are specifically directed at Mr. Vakil. So I thought I'll just put in a few. One, of course, is asking for what kind of markets are available in corporate law. And somebody is asking that I would like to know careers in law in abroad, especially in financial law.
Right. So what kind of markets are available in corporate law? I presume the question is what kind of jobs. So of course, there are all the law firms. Now there are so many of them. And also, if you choose that I prefer to work what we call in-house. So you work within a corporate. So you work in the Tata Group, Mahindra Group, Birla Group, whatever group that you choose to be in. That's a choice. Sometimes people say that that gives a better work-life balance. The hours are not as bad as at a law firm. I guess those would be the choices. You could also go into a bank or a private equity fund, but that is more unusual. Basically, it's the law firms and the corporates. The second question you said in terms of financial institutions?
Yeah, financial law. Somebody wants to pursue financial law abroad.
Pursue financial law abroad. So, I mean, any education is always very helpful. The experience is amazing. The basic principles would be largely the same. But I have to say in financial law, the details would be very different. Whether you do it in the US, UK, Australia, Canada, wherever, the details will be different. So the principles and, as I said, the education will always be helpful. But once you come back, you're going to have to read our statutes, our regulations, which are distinct. So I guess that's all I can say.
So since we said you're joining us from London, so somebody wants to know, is it better to study law in India or UK?
That's a tough question, but I always believed, and I did it myself all those decades back, that I did my law in India, and I don't regret it at all. I did a LLM thereafter in Columbia, but I think for two reasons. Now, of course, you have so many good institutions, including like yourselves, and two is that the people you spend the time with, many of them are your colleagues for life, and I think that makes a huge difference. So while if you go off to the UK or US or wherever, that is unlikely unless you decide that you never want to come back. But friends that I made in a government law college, I'm very pleased to say, dear friends today, people who I work with constantly. So I think that's a very important aspect to keep in mind.
And this question, I'm not very clear. It says, Mr. Vakil, do firms in India train their employees adequately? If not, should they?
Of course they should. There is no question about that. And I have to be honest, again, we are not at international levels. I mean, I was mentioning, especially, I think the UK does it the best, even better than the US. The amount of training they give their young associates is phenomenal. At AZB, we are certainly striving to do better. to come to an international standard. But and it's crucial. There's no question that is crucial. But again, there is room for improvement, if I have to be honest.
Okay. We'll come back to the questions later because I thought there was some directed specifically at you, so I thought I'll ask them first.
Thank
Dr.
you so much.
Padmanabhan, yeah, thank you. Dr. Padmanabhan, would you just throw some light on how is India's digital transition helping in generating new careers?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the landscape has changed significantly, even if you take like a 5-year period. 20, I would say about 2012 to 16 has been a real transformation in many ways, in the way that your startups and unicorns really started, gaining a lot of public attention, started hiring lawyers, and in the meantime, the whole public policy hiring has also really gone up significantly. So that is largely on account of consumer-facing technology companies, be it social media, be it cab aggregators, any kind of consumer-facing tech, and there is also in parallel the whole move towards stricter data protection laws. The European Union's General Data Protection Regulation came into effect. So I think all of these have combined in many ways to create huge demand for lawyers who are specialized in technology law and policy, be it data protection, cyber security, again, an area where there's a lot of need for lawyers who get the IT Act and similar, allied provisions and legislations. Again, yeah, I think, both Indian companies and multinationals really are looking at India as this very experimental, high energy space where you can innovate a lot, be it drones or 5G networks, or any kind of new technology. I think, India is really a crucible for a lot of interesting work, fintech, health tech, and so many different areas, right? So that has naturally led to a lot of interest in tech law and policy. And I think that is also an area that demands special training. I do feel that to do it is a bit like what Prabha ma'am was mentioning, right? It is not a technical field as much as one that requires you to be a little creative in the way you can connect the dots. Even if you look at tech entrepreneurship, right, and look at the businessman in that industry, Mr. Ramani is a very good example himself. You kind of are really a connector. You're connecting the dots rather than really, saying, look, I've been trained in X or Y or Z discipline. And most often when I speak to lawyers who have been successful in catering to that clientele, they too have that same kind of energy, right? And they are lawyers who have really branded themselves well using podcasts, using the digital medium. They are lawyers who are capable of speaking the vocabulary of the technology industry. And I think that really requires a very interdisciplinary outlook to education, to processing information and synthesizing it and so on. So I think the set of skills that are required to be a successful technology law and policy practitioner are much more generalist skills, in fact, like better critical thinking, better communication abilities, and better processing of information, like, and being a fast learner, right, who can pick up information from multiple sources and really apply it, connect the dots. So I think it's a very rapidly growing area of practice with a lot of interesting skill sets attached to it. And I can speak a little more about it later. At the Daksha Fellowship, this is something that we have actually experimented a fair bit with, and fairly successfully, I must say. So yes, happy to speak later.
Thank you. So how can we also create new opportunities for lawyers by intersecting? Like in the beginning, we talked about this hybrid university. So how does actually legal and liberal arts, how do they benefit from each other? What is that? Maybe Prabha ma'am would throw some light on it. Yeah, please. Sorry, it's your time. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you for
apologies. Sincere apologies to everyone, especially to you, my co-panelists. Sincere apologies. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure having you on the panel, and thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Best.
It was
Thank
great
you,
to
thank
meet
you
you,
so
Mr.
much.
Vakil.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, Prabha ma'am.
Yes, definitely. I think knowledge of literature and history, basic about our country's geography, everything. I think it's useful, and the societal shifts, the political shifts. I think we need to understand all that when we look at. I mean, it's not every case that needs it, but there are cases which do need such a wide familiarity with the different subjects. Let me put it that way. So a liberal structure would be better than something like a silo. I think it will produce better lawyers and better judges. Definitely.
Somebody is asking you, Prabha ma'am, why are so few girls in the field, and which is a safe law to practice for women? I don't know whether there's anything called safe law to practice.
Safe. I too don't know whether what this
Maybe-
what means say, but I really think law is a great area of study for. I mean, for everyone. But since the questioner wants to know specifically for women,
Women.
yes, for women, we are not in numbers. We are not as much as we should be. But I guess it will take some time. See, even law, it very often by default, it drops into the masculine pronoun. So it's been a very, very strictly male world. And so whichever area you're talking about, I'm sure it's the same in your journalism also. It's very tough to break it, and law is even more that way, a rigid construction. I found to my dismay that even in Domestic Violence Act, there was a section where it should have been a she, but the pronoun was he. It's not malice aforethought. It's just the default pronoun.
Right.
So when do we become the default gender? I don't think that's going to happen. But I'm saying, so it is difficult. I mean, it's not that there is no hope. I'm very optimistic. Things will improve. There are many areas in which not just litigation, not just court. I mean, when you're talking of, you're looking at the number of judges, right? But if you think of the legal field as a whole space, then the permeation of women may be much more. We don't have the data.
Yeah,
Inland-
Mr. Panchu. Yes,
Yes.
please.
Mr. Ramani wanted to say something.
No, Mr. Panchu also raised his hand, so I
Yeah,
thought.
let Ramani go first.
Okay.
This is Prabhat. Thank you for bringing up this point. I just want to only make one point. I think it is true with law and justice have been historically male-dominated professions, perhaps like many other professions. But it's changing rapidly. Just give you one data point. Last year, Sai University, we ran what's called Daksha Fellowship, a one-year diploma program for people practicing tech law and alternative dispute resolution and also policy and research. And out of our class, 45% of the class were girls, 45%. So I think it is changing, and I think it's changing rapidly because I think girls are finding law to be a great field for them because it's an intellectual pursuit and they can set their own working hours and they have a lot of freedom at workplace where they do private practice or they work in a corporate or want to do any diversity of work or so on. So I think it's a great field for young women to get into the legal field. And I'm seeing that happen already. I'm not too sure about the national data, but the limited data I have, it's 45%. In my opinion, is a very large number. I was quite surprised. Anant may want to add on that.
Mr. Panchu, you said you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I think this is this question is we're kind of big way. We are not without hope, and at the same time, there's a lot that we lack. We can always point to good examples and good numbers and say that the gender disparity is going down. But we are a long way. We are a long distance away from anything like equality. Okay, maybe it's a good idea to think of annual reports. Annual reports to do with gender disparity and maybe other subjects like diversity, but just an annual report which is a tracker of what is happening in the profession, on the ground, in the courts, among members of the profession, because statistics tell very good tales. And statistics also, I think, should measure, be sensitive to points like you may have a lot of people at X level, but in the levels that really matter, in leadership levels, how many women do you have? So a well-designed gender report for the legal system, if it were to happen, would, I think, go a long way. Till then, we can talk in terms of generalities, but it's good to focus on that, on the numbers.
Right. There's one interesting question on law as an inherited profession. Why a lawyer's son is a lawyer? And somebody is asking, is it really that difficult in today's scenario for a first-generation lawyer to succeed in litigation? Whoever wants to answer.
I'll tell you, when I was asked that question, is your father, uncle a lawyer? My answer was, we are a lawless family. I'm the first. So it is, of course, so much easier for the person whose father is a lawyer. You're walking into a law practice. You're walking into a social contact world, which has lawyers and perhaps judges. Far more easier than being a lawyer, having a lawyer for a father is you have a judge for a father. So it is so much easier. There's no doubt about it. But how far does that take you? It may give you a quick start on the 100-meter race. But if you don't have what it needs, nobody's going to give you a case, just because you're a judge's son or a lawyer's son. So one doesn't need one needs to recognize that, yes, some people have those advantages, but also to know that not having that advantage doesn't really matter a lot. And whether it's your boss or the judge on the bench, they respond to how good you are as a lawyer.
There are lots of questions on, what is the basic knowledge level required to clear an exam, how to crack the exam. I mean, the multiple questions. So, I mean, what do we tell them to give them some kind of encouragement?
Right. I could just weigh in here. So we've been really kind of helping students through the entire Daksha journey and now the LLM journey with understanding the CLAT exam better. So, I mean, I think there is, back in the day when when I wrote the NLS entrance and so on, it was still not such a big, thing, right? In the sense that all this peer pressure around clearing the entrance exam, like we saw with IIT and so on, wasn't really there. I think CLAT has really made NLS, I mean, the law entrance space kind of heat up, and there's a lot of concern as to, am I preparing right and so on. The only thing I would really say is that, there is room still for candidates who prepare more or approach this more organically to do absolutely well and make it to, if not the top, the definitely the top 3 law schools, right? And I mean, honestly, looking at each of these schools and evaluating the kind of work that goes on, I think there isn't a huge difference, at the very top, right, between the national law schools and some of the better private law schools and so on. So I think that basically you need a decent command over verbal and then some bit of critical reasoning skills, which you can really train yourself. There's a lot of material available online. I mean, you don't need to really even do, like, according to me, these expensive coaching centers and all of that. You just need to kind of look at free content online, which can train you, and basic 10th standard math arithmetic is what CLAT really is. A colleague of mine, Abhishek Chakravarti, has written quite a bit on the CLAT entrance process, especially for those who are interested in doing LLM. So you can check it out on the Sai University social media pages. It's available. So I'll just pause here.
Right. Mr. Panchu, you wanted to say something.
I think we should have a ban on coaching centers. Whether it is for law or for engineering, whatever,
Getting out.
nothing is so as destructive of childhood as these centers. And I frankly think they turn out people who are attuned to cracking the exam based on the kind of questions which have been asked before. So I would much rather see them banned, and then you can get people who've gone through proper schooling and come and answer questions and be evaluated on that basis.
Prabha ma'am, there's a young student who's inspired by you and is preparing for CLAT, but she wants to know, how was your experience as a judge of the High Court in a male-dominated room?
You should ask me what was our experience when she was a judge at my court.
Okay, you can feel free to reply and say that also.
She was a very good judge. Very good judge. We really missed her when time came for her to retire.
We knew that I knew I was one of the few that was there. But let me tell you, I mean, I also want to paint the men well, okay? See,
That's fair enough, yeah.
See, one of the judgments that when I was at the division bench, we wrote was on the value given to the woman as a homemaker. That was the first time something like that had been done. Okay. And after the judgment came out, 3 of my colleagues, all men, rang me up and said, "We've also thought this. Why didn't we write it?" So I was in a male-dominated field, and it was the men who came and complimented me for that judgment. It is there, but if you, the work compensates. Actually, being a judge, if you like it, it's one of the most exciting professions.
Sorry, please.
if you don't look at it just for the money or the status or anything, but the work itself, it's very rewarding. That's my personal experience.
There are a lot of similar questions where students are writing that they're all aspiring law students who would like to study law or are perhaps also studying law, but they do not want to become a practicing lawyer. So they want to know what else can we do. Ma'am, you have to unmute yourself.
Actually, they don't have to become practicing lawyer because there are so many avenues that are open. And this question that you asked about the inherited profession, that was valuable only when law was only a litigation profession, not anymore. I don't think that is a big hurdle. And as Mr. Sriram said, that even if you got entry as the son of a lawyer or as the son of a judge or the daughter of a lawyer or the daughter of a judge, ultimately you had to prove yourself because it's your clients who are your best advertisement. So unless you deliver the goods, they are not going to say that she actually won the case for me or she is a very good lawyer. I will recommend you. They are not going to say that. So, but now litigation is not the only avenue for a law graduate. It's such a wide field. So I think it's fine.
Yes, Mr. Panch.
Yeah, you see, you can join a law firm which has areas other than litigation. You could get into specialized litigative areas. For example, telecom, there is a branch of litigation, just telecom work. And some people prefer to go into that, rather than the hurly-burly of the high courts and the Supreme Court. So there are special litigative areas too, which could be useful. A consumer court, for example, a telecom forum. Teaching is another area. So the law has actually opened up over the last 20 years. Arbitration is an area, mediation may become an area. So I think people who say, well, I don't want to go to court, do I have no other options? No, there are plenty of other options. But I would also ask them to examine why they say they don't want to go to court. Too many youngsters, I find, have a kind of reflexive feeling about court and litigation. You may be right, but I think you should know more before you reject it, because there are very interesting things happening in courts. There are some wondrous things which are happening. And after all, a court of law is really the place where you see social impact and movement and change. So the answer as a whole is there are plenty of other areas of law. Joining a company, joining a law firm, joining government, joining an NGO, joining an international institution. All of them need lawyers. So there are plenty of areas. But before you say no to the court, check it out a bit.
There's also a chunk of question on...
I want to add one thing.
Please.
For the person who is reluctant to go to courts, see, you'll be arguing and you'll find the judge resisting what you're saying. And suddenly you say something and you know the tide turns. The gush of adrenaline that comes then is unbeatable. And that excitement, I think Mr. Sriram knows. And it makes a lot of it worth it. The wait, the hours, especially in Chennai, the heat of the crowd. you know that you hit the bullseye. That's exciting.
There's also a chunk of questions on pursuing cyber law and international law. Like students want to know what is the future in these two sectors.
I could take the cyber law part, international law, maybe less so, but I can take a crack at that too. So yeah, I think cyber law, like I mentioned earlier, is a very hot and happening field. Like maybe corporate law has always been post liberalization, but immediately after liberalization, that there was that whole demand for and very little supply of people who really understood corporate law and financial regulations. We are in that kind of juncture when it comes to cyber law, starting with the IT Act, but definitely not ending there, because there is just way too many regulatory interventions happening around the digital economy, right? So cyber law is, it's not, I don't even think the right nomenclature. I would really say digital economy regulations, whether it's data protection, e-commerce, drone regulations. There is just so much happening in each of these areas, and I have really seen that evolution firsthand. Like when I came back to India in 2016 to start work at a reputed think tank in Delhi, India had just gone through this wave of outright bans on certain kinds of technologies, including drones. And just a month ago, we've had probably the world's most permissive regime on civilian drone operations. I mean, really 180-degree, turnaround. So I think there is a lot happening in this space. Some of it is connected with international law, because lawyers are increasingly called upon to engage with the international norm setting in technology-driven areas. So it all began with intellectual property rights, or TRIPS, really opened up these areas of expertise. But again, it doesn't end there. TRIPS is really a strong foundational area, and from there we have seen a lot of work on internet governance, where Indian lawyers have been very actively involved, like Sunil Abraham, who's not a lawyer, but set up the Center for Internet and Society. That organization has incubated so much of thinking and brought in so many lawyers who want to do internet governance work. And then from there today to newer areas of universal norm setting around all kinds of technologies. Similarly, of course, international law has always been a very interesting area for lawyers to build an expertise in. And at Daksha Fellowship, one area where we saw a lot of that interest manifest is international commercial arbitration. We didn't offer that as a full course. We really, it was a module, but it was one of those very sought after electives at the fellowship. So I think there is a lot of work, which is happening in national commercial.
So the new generation wants to know, after completing law, doing a bachelor's degree, would there be a uniform salary structure and a good starting remuneration, or will my life be a struggle? This is for the freshly passed out students.
Mr. Panchu, would you like to guide them?
Your life is certainly going to be brighter than what mine was when I started the practice. Okay, we were notorious. The bar was notorious at that time for not paying juniors. Actually, I was the exception, because my senior Govind Swaminathan believed in paying his juniors. So I am actually one of the lucky exceptions, but it was well known at that time that you don't expect to get paid for the first few years. I mean, all that has changed, over the years. Today, youngsters command decent salaries. Many of them start their own practice within a few years of joining the bar. So that whole, thing about you will not make any money for the first few years. I know it still drives young lawyers to law firms. because law firms offer attractive pay packages right at inception. And if you feel that insecurity, which you're bound to feel when you leave law school, then you will gravitate towards the law firm. I think that's where people miss out a lot, because it's after a few years at the bar that you really start seeing the rewards of the profession. And I feel a bit sad for youngsters who have gone there, stayed away from that. So, in short, the answer is it's not as bad as it was before. You will not get the kind of salaries that law firms now and companies now will give you. But if you stay, if you hang in there, you will realize why practice of law is one of the best things one of the best professions going. Because law firms, I think, well, Behram should have been here when I said this. Law firms also have a burnout rate, I think. They have a burnout rate, and they, I think, probably will have more repetitive activity than you have, at the bar. The bar is a place of constant challenge. So whether the law firm will offer you the same kind of work is another question. But essentially, I think we're all saying the same thing, go to where your heart tells you to go. Follow your instincts. And, if you can't follow your instincts when you're young, when else are you going to follow them?
Somebody's asking, what do you think about the colleges which do not have a ranking? Do they produce as good lawyers?
What ranking are they talking? I don't know. Anand, what ranking is this?
There are multiple ones. I guess the most popular one is the India Today rankings. Yeah, so it's
Ranking by one of these periodicals, is it?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk in terms of the more well-known colleges as distinct to not so well-known. I frankly think for a good legal education to take root, you need one good teacher, and that one good teacher will inspire you. The rest of it is your work, in the library, and doing your reading and doing whatever else you need to. But one good teacher, I think you will make it with that. And rankings, I've seen too many rankings to really think about how they're done. So I'm not particularly a fan of rankings.
Prabha ma'am, would you like to add something as any concluding remarks? Because I've been indicated that the time is up in another 5 minutes.
Yeah, I agree with Sriram. Forget the rankings. And frankly, correct me if I'm wrong, Anand. I think the high-ranking schools do not send many lawyers. The lawyers come from the not high-ranking schools, because that is where the hustle and bustle is.
Right.
And this thing I would like to tell all the young law aspirants. The court is a microcosm of the world. If you want to see the world as it is, because otherwise we all live in our own small echo chambers. In court, you can't. You see the world, and your corners may be softened, maybe curved. And so that is a wonderful place to go and to see what is what, and to realize. And after a few years, if you want to change, that is fine. But see the world, and not just your own group. Especially with the social network, you tend to be in groups. Change that. Yes, Mr. Sriram wants to say something. Wish you all the best.
Completely agree with what Prabha said. The court being a microcosm of the world, and even if you decide to leave it later, what you have learned during your time in court is invaluable. And let's not forget that, uh, we need the court and we need the lawyers to keep that fundamental balance for a democracy. In terms of governance, that court and those lawyers are crucial.
I will just, because there's one specific question directed at Sai University. So somebody is writing that there are universities which are offering BTech LLB courses. What is the equivalent degree that Sai offers? And will a computing and DS major and law minor be an appropriate suitable match? Dr. Padmanabhan?
So I can take that. I'm sure Mr. Ramani will have some thoughts to offer, but the immediate response is that we, at this point in time, are only doing postgraduate programs in law. We are working towards our Bar Council approvals for undergrad programs. And certainly at that point, we would like to do unconventional programs that leverage on the interdisciplinarity that exists within the university, like Prabha ma'am mentioned. I am someone who personally believes very strongly in the ability of liberal education to transform your way of thinking. We would really like to even explore a good 3-year program, and that's something that we've been talking a lot about internally. So I think, yes, it's going to be exciting days for the law school. Watch the space. I don't want to say this is exactly the kind of program that we'll be doing, but I'm sure it will have elements of liberal arts and that humanities thinking, and it will bring in elements from STEM and sciences and technology as well. So it is going to be an interesting design when we have it.
Okay, Mr. Ramani, would you like to give some concluding remarks?
Yes, thank you, Uma. I'll just add on to what Professor Anand said. The Sai University is designed as a multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary university. Therefore, any program that we offer here will have the interdisciplinarity built into it. And we do believe that every field, whatever specialized program that you want, initial beginnings have to be in liberal education across all fields. The wider the base, the wider the knowledge, the better it is as you go higher up the qualification and professional chain. So we believe in undergrad education, which is widespread. You have a knowledge base across, liberal arts, liberal sciences, you have technology and law, management, even health sciences and so on. So we believe in programs which will come up in the future based on regulatory approvals, which will encompass all of these disciplines. Right now, we are offering the 2 programs, as I said at the beginning, in law school, lectureship on tech law, and an LLM program in regulatory law. That is for now. And watch out for more, waiting for more of these approvals to come so that we can offer them as soon as possible in the years to come. Thank you.
So thank you so much. It is really time to wind up, and I think it was quite an interesting and informative and invigorating session that showed us how the legal service industry has evolved, and also the need for specialization in the subject. Like Mr. Ramani was earlier mentioning that how now MBBS graduates, they mandatorily should be doing MD or MS, higher studies. So likewise, I think legal studies also demand a master's degree for furthering the career prospects. And of course, there are good academic institutions available to offer such new opportunities. And there are still lots and lots of questions pending from participants, which obviously couldn't take. So I'll see if we can mail them to you individually if they are specifically directed at any of you, and maybe you could respond if you wish to. So thank you once again, each one of you, the speakers and the participants, for sparing your valuable time and sharing your thoughts and joining us on this webinar of the Hindu Education Plus hosted by Sai University. Thank you all and good night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks to the Hindu team as well.
Thanks all the panelists.
That's long, huh?
Thank you, Justice Prabha. Thank you, Sriram.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you, Sriram.
Good
Welcome.
night. Good night. I enjoyed it very much. Thank you, Soma.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Prabha,
I don't know.
question which you should answer next time we meet.
Yes.
How did you keep both when you were a judge, your social, your sensitivity to issues, as well as keeping the equality balance undisturbed?
No, I think we'll keep that for another day. I'll think about it and answer. First of all, thank you for the understated compliment. That is a big compliment. Yeah, I really enjoyed myself. Mr. Ramani, I think you must, Sriram will also agree with me. I mean, this is for the future, to devise a course for drafting statutes.